Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our city council meeting. I'd ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Here.
Councilmember Litzo,
Here.
Councilmember Sears,
Here.
Councilmember Ward,
Present.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Here.
Councilmember Dewey,
Here.
Councilmember Gibbons. Here.
We will go straight to public comments.
The public comments portion of the meeting is an opportunity for the city council to listen to comments from citizens. It is not a question and answer session, and the city council will not respond to comments or answer questions during this period. The mayor may refer any matter brought up to the city council to the chief administrative officer or city clerk if action is needed.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, we do have a couple of requests for comment this evening. The first one is William Winter.
Good evening, Mayor and all members of the City Council. My name is William Winter, and as you know, I'm an advocate for the residents of Meacham Park, one of our subdivisions in our city. They wanted to send me here to make sure that every member of the council realizes that they have an invitation to our annual year-end celebration. It's an invitation for you and whoever you desire to bring with you. It's the MNIA, the Meacham Park Neighborhood Improvement Association's organization handling this. I'm going to call it a banquet, although when you say banquet, you think of a big turkey with all the trimmings. All that means is we're going to have some food there, okay? I'm here to make sure you're all invited. I left a note with you. And that's my purpose. And go right ahead with the rest of your business for the evening. Thank you.
William.
Thank you.
To see you, William.
Bill.
Craig Hanese.
Hello, my name's Craig Canatzy. I've lived in Kirkwood for 54 years with my family. We moved here in 1969 as soon as I got out of the military. So I'm deeply immersed in Kirkwood. We love it. Our kids are educated in the Kirkwood School District. Our grandkids are now in the district. So we would not want to live anywhere else other than Kirkwood. We had 44 family members with us from Wednesday to Saturday last week celebrating Thanksgiving. I wanted to share with you a couple of their comments about Kirkwood because they were either in hotels or bed and breakfast, our house, our son's house. They were immersed in Kirkwood big time for 4 days. And they loved it. They loved pretty much everything about it. Hotels, restaurants, OK Hatchery, farmer's market, the train station, everything that makes Kirkwood, Kirkwood. The comments, though, almost across the board. And my nephew said, Kirkwood's Achilles heel is your streets. They're horrible. And we had people here from Atlanta, Orlando, South Carolina, Dallas, Arkansas. We had a good cross section of the southeast part of our country. And almost to a man, they said, our cities don't have streets that are in as bad a shape as Kirkwood's are. And I know some of ours are pretty decent, North Geyer. Others are miserable. And I'm sure I'm talking to the choir here. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir. If you live in Kirkwood, you know what I'm saying to be true. Before I retired, I traveled all over Southeast Missouri, Southern Illinois, Western Kentucky, Central Illinois, Central Missouri, Columbia, Cape, Poplar Bluff, Mount Vernon, Paducah. None of those cities have roads that are in as bad a shape as Kirkwood's. And I just wanted to bring this to your attention, the comments of people that were here from out of town that loved our city, everything about it, except our roads. So I'm just bringing that to your attention. Thank you all for your service, by the way. And I'll just end up by saying we wouldn't go anywhere else but here. I don't care if we had to drive across rocky roads. We're not leaving Kirkwood, but thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Mayor and council, there are no additional questions or requests at this time.
Good. All right. We'll go on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
All right, we got a motion, a second. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Say no. Motion passes. We'll go to unfinished business, Bill 10951.
Mayor and council, this is, just one second, through my consent agenda. Take a deep breath for this one too. This is an ordinance repealing ordinance number 10,005 and all other previous fire prevention codes in conflict with this ordinance and enacting a new fire prevention code, International Fire Code, first printing 2021 edition, including appendix chapters B, D, E, F, I, L, and K. Published by the International Code Council and the National Fire Protection Association, including amendments set forth herein governing the design, construction, alteration, enlargement, equipment repairs, conversion, use or maintenance of all buildings and structures, prescribing minimum requirements and controls to safeguard life, property, or public welfare from the hazards of fire and explosion, providing for the issuance of permits, collection of fees, and making of inspections, providing penalties for the violation thereof, and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
All right, do we have any questions or comments? This was one that was continued from last meeting, and I think the fees all got worked out, so.
I'm
Councilmember
not
Sears.
sure, but perhaps if I heard the red one more
Yeah.
time. Jill,
I agree with you. Yeah. It was a lot.
I would like to hear the title again.
That's right. That sounds fine. So,
fine.
all right, seeing no questions or comments, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Yes.
Bill passes. Bill 10952.
Mayor and council, this is an ordinance appropriating 22,600 from the Equitable Sharing Fund balance to the Police Department Machinery and Equipment account and authorizing the mayor to enter into a 2-year services agreement with Flock Group Incorporated for the lease and installation of 4 flock safety cameras for the police department.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Yes.
Bill passes. Go to new business, Bill 10953.
Mayor and council, this is an ordinance changing the zoning from R4 Single Family Residential District to B3 Highway Business District on property known as 10,557 Big Bend Boulevard, being an approximately 0.3 acre site on the north side of Big Bend Boulevard and directing such change in the zoning district map.
Is there a motion for approval?
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. I'll speak very briefly, quick. And one thing we have to remember, and I'll say it before City Attorney Hessel does, this, even though we've got the special use bill second, if this bill doesn't pass, we don't even go to this Bill 10954. But we have to keep discussion on this to the rezone, not to the special use permit for the daycare center. I will just say briefly, I am in favor of the rezoning. I don't think the existing zoning on this particular piece of property is reasonable anymore. It probably was at some point in time. Both properties on each side, including one that could potentially be made into one plat, are already B3. So I think keeping this R4 just makes no sense anymore. So I am in support of the rezoning. We have other council questions or comments?
I just
Councilmember
agree
Ward?
with you, Mayor. I think
Okay.
it's an appropriate rezoning and it fits with the city's master plan.
It is
So,
appropriate?
It is appropriate,
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
unless you don't want it to be.
No, I thought you said you disagreed, Mayor. I thought you said,
I
you did-
agree.
I said I
I
agree.
I
apologize.
just agree.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said disagree. Okay, that's
We
right.
can check the record.
No, I,
Roll the tape back.
no, I'm very good. Okay. All right, seeing no other, questions or comments, all in favor of first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
You know, bill passes first reading. Bill 10954.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance granting a special use permit for a child daycare center and authorizing the site plan at 10551 and 10557 Big Bend Boulevard, subject to certain conditions.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Again, I'll make just some brief comments on this. I also am in favor of the special use permit for this. I know there was conversation, rightfully so, about some of the traffic and how cars will get in and out and potentially inconveniences to people, but in looking at it, visually and just looking at the traffic data, I just think that this is a good use for that property, and that if customers find that it's too inconvenient for them to go there, they'll go somewhere else. And I don't mean that negatively, but that's what's going to happen. And in looking at the numbers, the traffic numbers, it just doesn't appear there's going to be that many cars who will have to, turn around, whether it's at, Milwaukee or Fillmore, so they can make the right turn in going west. So I think this is a good use for this property, and I support it. Other questions from council? Comments? Councilmember Litzo?
Well, to that whole, traffic question, I was wondering, Amy, do you know, or I don't know if there's a representative of the petitioner here. Originally, they had proposed 110 maximum students, and then they reduced it to 80 to 90. And I wanted to confirm that the traffic analysis that was done was based on the initial 110 students. So some of the numbers of traffic and trips and, eastbound traffic gonna have to go to Fillmore and turn around to do the right in, right out stuff. That actually is likely lower than what was originally reported in their study. No.
Traffic analysis is done based on the use and the square footage of the building. So at daycare center, under the ITE manual, has so many visits, and then based on how big they propose it to be, which is 11,000 square feet. So it's not based on the number.
80% of westbound traffic, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
And estimating that
Hold on a
20%
second.
of
I'm
the
sorry. I
drivers would be,
apologize. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I thought you were talking about the
not the trip
110 to
generations.
90. Okay.
Well, I'm talking about the right in, right out issues. And parents having to kind of, let's say eastbound Big Bend parents having to go down to Fillmore, turn around, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Because there's no left turn into the site.
Right. And Chris, did you have an update on that based how the 80% was?
So, Chris, yeah, we have to hold on. Okay. All right. We need to suspend our rules to allow you to come up, waive Robert's rules of order to allow the petitioner to come up. Is there a motion to do that?
Motion.
We got a motion, a
Second.
second. Are there any questions or comments? All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Now, there you go.
All right.
Oh, yeah. You didn't know that rule?
No.
Oh, my
Happen again.
gosh.
Sorry about that.
No, you're.
Don't let it happen again.
Yeah, so to follow on Amy's comment, the ITE just decides how much traffic generation based on the square footage. We don't actually dictate that. So our capacity is dictated by the licensing of each classroom, right? So our 80 to 90 is based on the classrooms that we're programming for the space. which is less than what the ITE traffic is saying. So to confirm what you were pointing out, we are actually going to have less than what is shown in that traffic generation. And that's because we chose to have, like, for instance, 0 to 12 months, there's only 8 kids per class. And that's dictated by the state of Missouri Health Department. And then as they get older, the classrooms get larger. And so ours is based on the health department code. IT traffic, when the traffic engineers do it, they can't look at what we tell them our occupancy is going to be. They have to use the square footage. I mean, their process is very left without interpretation, right? It's by the book, by the code, right? So that we can't have any influence on their process.
But I just wanted to confirm that there
Yes.
was no adjustment made, that the 80 to 90, which is a lower number of students.
They can't adjust the traffic memo because it's dictated by ITE. But to confirm what you are saying, we have less occupancy based on our programming than what is shown in that report.
Right. But as far as right in, right out, those kinds of no left turn, parents having to turn around at Fillmore or adjust whatever to get into the site,
Sure.
those numbers are likely
They're lower,
than
correct.
what was reported.
They are lower, but we can't. I can't change that report, if that
Okay.
makes any sense.
I just wanted to like,
Yes.
get that out there.
You're correct. They are
Okay.
lower than that, than what is shown in that report.
Okay, I mean, there are some parents who are probably gonna have to go down to Fillmore and sit there and wait and maybe, do a turnaround or who knows
You're
what.
correct. I mean, it's an unfortunate reality. I think, Mr. Griffin, you're right, and it's a risk that we're taking, and our tenant is taking as a business, based on what St. Louis DOT told us, right? Like, we knew going into it very early on before, that's the first thing. We had one conversation with Amy and Jonathan, and the very second thing we did after having a conversation was said, because we do this across the country with this tenant, is we got to go talk to the DOT because planning and zoning, there's conversations, but the DOT is very black and white. It's approved or not approved, and they can, kill a project before a project starts, right? So we got that, the traffic memos, we did a traffic memo before we did a site plan, right? Because we wanted to make sure that they were going to approve, and this is what they told us was what they wanted, right? So it's not necessarily great for the business. It's not your ideal solution, but it's the solution that was told that would be acceptable to them. And so we love Kirkwood. We love the area. We want to be here. We're building in Baldwin right now. We want to be here, and it's a sacrifice that we're willing to make to be in the area.
I had one other comment. Well, actually, two things. But as far as drop off pickup, that might be something, I don't know if you're gonna have to like time that whole thing, because with 30 spots, 2 of them being ADA with potential of 18 staff on site.
Sure. Happy to address that. I have a presentation on that, but it's not up here. Basically, we don't have a defined start and end time, right? So what happens is, because of that, it's not like elementary school where everyone comes at 8:30 and it's a mad rush. Our classroom really starts at 7, and pickup or drop off really is between 7 and 10. Where we get like 98% of the drop-offs. It's no larger than 16%. I mean, we have over 100 schools across the country. Kids have to badge in and out with their parents, not the kid. And so we have a lot of data on that. And over a 15-minute interval, no more than 16% of people. The average drop-off is about 8 minutes. And so we actually feel that we're a couple spots overparked based on the data. Which is okay, right? We actually have 5 or 6 more spots than what's required in zoning because of that. I mean, normally people don't just provide extra parking for no reason. We did it because that's what we felt like was necessary for our use, right?
Okay, good. The other thing is, I wanted to talk about the 8-foot high fence along the north
Yeah.
and east side, for a lot of similar kinds of changes in activity and separation from adjacent residential. We've required more than, we've additional requirements as to the fence material. And for example, at the Magic House, though I'm not sure if it's an 8 or 10-foot tall fence, but they were required for sound mitigation as well as site proof to put in like a composite fence, like a Simtech type composite fence or wall. Actually, it's completely site proof.
Okay.
And I think what is indicated here is a shadow box type, which is not really 100% site proof. Plus it's wood. I don't know the type of wood, but it's my intention to propose a condition to this that the 8-foot tall fence be a Simtech type composite cementitious fence that you could maybe work out with staff as to the specifics of it. But it's more durable, it's color fast, it's more wind resistant, it's much more soundproof than wood, than a shadow box would. So, and we have done that for this because it's a rezoning. And there are residential properties just to the north and east of this. I feel like it's a sensitive area for those residents to up the requirement some and still an 8-foot fence, but to require a little bit higher specification on the fence, which is also much more durable, so longer lasting. Unless you have some major opposition to this, that's.
I'd say that in general, we're nearby residential fairly often. And basically in outlots in front of neighborhoods is actually pretty common, including the one in Baldwin, right down the road here. Noise is typically never an issue because we're only open from 7 to 6 and the kids are only playing on the playground 11 to 2, call it, right? Where most people are at work. And if you're hearing kids play on a playground, it's not, we don't have deliveries backing up and things that typically people are worried about. We often have a site-proof fence. I keep using Baldwin, but it's an example where that was a requirement as well. I haven't had a cementitious type product used before. I don't know exactly what you're specifying here, but I'm not opposed to it, other than it's just not been a request ever before in other places. So
It's a type of composite. I don't remember what kind of plastic. It's a type of polyvinyl, something or other. But or Simtech or a similar type of fence. It was required to separate the parking lot at the Magic House from the nearby residential. So but you could work out the details with staff.
Sure.
As long as there's no major opposition. I do feel it would help buffer and separate the residential from this new activity. And it is, the existing commercial that's going on there, I think that's a pretty sedate neighbor at the moment. Not much going on at the architects.
Commercial is.
And
Order, I'd like to ask a question.
Hold on, I was gonna wait till the dialogue was finished. I said, Russ, can I ask Jonathan to come up and just on the fences, what I know what they've proposed, the wooden meets our meets our code. What have we done in other cases, in terms of different types of fence?
Yeah, so as Councilmember Lizzo has said, it's been common for commercial next to adjacent to have this category in the recent past of either a cementitious, which means it has cement in it, right? The major material is cement. Now that actually hasn't been, I think the one example I can think of for that, it is quite expensive, is the mobile on the run. It is a cement panel, right? That condition was also put on the BP. They do have cement anyway, so it requires cement to be part of the material. The Simtech composite is a vinyl composite that has steel fibers in it for durability and for sound mitigating matters. So those are the two things that often came into conditions of special use permits. The code requires, when we updated our code, we required different levels of buffering based on the proposed zoning and the adjacent zoning. And what this requires is an 8-foot tall, site-proof and sound mitigating fence. So sound mitigating, right? You're not going to be soundproof. So really any solid fence mitigates sound. But it is correct that the Simtech composite comparable material has been required recently. So
This is an unfair question. I mean, do we find that to be a more durable, maybe even a less costly product over?
in the
a
long
certain
run,
amount of
over
time?
yeah, I mean, I don't have any facts to say what the cost savings would be in the long run, but it's certainly more durable. Specifically that composite, this specific composite, as opposed to even a commercial grade vinyl, right? The Simtech composite that has that steel fiber in it with commercial activity is much more durable and long lasting color fastness as stated as well. It has a lot of
Wind resistant.
yeah. So there are a lot of and I don't.
Mayor, may I be recognized for just for point of
Councilmember
order? I have
Sears,
Robert's Rules of Order. I have a question about it.
Councilmember Sears, when I asked our planning director to come up, I preside. When he is done, you may ask your point of order question. At this point,
Don't shut down my, I mean,
I'm
that
not
will
shutting you
negate
down.
my point of order.
well, maybe it will. Go ahead, please. All right,
I think I'm finished.
okay.
Okay. Sorry if I did not mean to interrupt. Now, may I ask a question?
Yes, you-
Respectfully, I mean, I understand, I tried to
No, understand.
let this go for the long discussion, but apparently this is going to be a motion to amend I mean, it's been indicated that this was going to be a motion to amend what we're talking about. And so I expect then when it's brought up, because I think it should have been brought up as a motion and discussed within the context of the motion when it's actually on the floor about what type of fence is going to be. And so I expect when the motion's brought up, we don't have this part of the discussion again, because it's going to open it up once
Well,
more.
and
That's
that-
my only point.
understood. Understood, but that's one reason I asked Jonathan to come up, so that if a motion is brought up, it is more specific. It's not maybe a cemented, I can't even say the word, or a
It's hard to
vinyl,
say.
polyvinyl. or
Concrete
whatever.
fence.
We've got it, it needs to be a specific, type of fence. So
Yeah.
that's what I was trying to get at, and I didn't mean to put Jonathan on the spot, but I wanted to find out what we had done in other situations. So that's,
No. I didn't need an explanation, but appreciate it.
all right. Did you have anything else? You have the floor right now.
Other than I would agree that it is on my mind to move that we up the ante on the fence.
All right.
That's all.
Well, you can make a motion now, or you can wait until other comments, whatever you prefer, but the motion should be a specific.
Well, I mean, okay, I wasn't real clear on procedural, but I do intend to, or I would make a motion that to add condition number 19 regarding the fence or wall on the north and east side of the property. The required 8-foot tall sound mitigating and site-proof fence shall be constructed of either a cementitious material or a material comparable to a Simtech composite fence as determined by Planning and Development Services Department.
Okay.
That would
Is-
be my motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. All right. Now, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Ward.
Well, Mayor, I strongly believe, and as I've stated in when we've had this come up before on the issue of cementatious fences, that the best fence is one that the two neighbors agree on. And I would urge this body to encourage the applicant to work with the neighbors to to see if they can't compromise on the materials that a fence are made of. You know, our guidelines for sight and for noise are in place, but what that fence is made out of and what it looks like should be determined by those two parties.
Do we have anything else on that? I've got a comment on that, so. Councilmember Gibbons?
My big thing is I just don't want shiny vine.
Councilmember Sears, no.
Okay. Yeah, my view is, as it's been whenever this has come up, that unless it's really necessary and needed, I'm in favor more of what the property owner has planned. I have a shadow box. If I want to spy on my neighbor, I can turn it an extreme angle and look through the slits into their yard, but otherwise it is site-proof. That's what it's designed to be. But I don't like raising the costs on private businesses unless it is deemed absolutely necessary, which I guess is a decision of the council, whether it is. But I don't see it in this instance. I think it meets our requirements. It is a workable fence for the situation. And so, I will be opposed to putting that additional burden beyond our requirements or what I view as necessary on the applicant.
All right.
Yeah, I guess, Mr. Raish mentioned that, this meets city code, this meets, based on this scenario and this location. And I believe we kind of looked at these in the past recently on, different grade levels of fencing type and what's appropriate for certain locations. Maybe a more robust fence is good at mobile because of the noise level. But, in this scenario, I would think that, there's a motorcycle dealership right here. And if you've ever been there at certain times, those motorcycles are very, very loud. So my concern to those neighbors would be the motorcycles versus daycare. Just, in my mind, and I live near an elementary, I do hear the kids playing because I work from home. I hear the children at Westchester out playing and, there's no fence. So, we hear it very clearly. So I would think, any type of fence, because it's not, to me, as a homeowner, it's not burdensome to me to hear that. That being said, you're going to have a fence there anyway. And if we want to raise the ante on this property, then, do we look at all the properties and all the fencing requirements to say, well, what we have under code is not good enough. If it is, great, but if it's not, if we think there's an issue, then do we go back and look at everything? Because, we've done this many times and I want us to be consistent on what we do as a body, as a council. But I don't want to overburden the business and I want it to be, agreeable with the neighbors and with the property owner.
The only comment to that is, I think when we talked about this a couple of years ago, is it's probably better to keep the minimum where we have it now. And there could be situations where something more upgraded is warranted, but it's easier to move up than it is to, go down. We're saying we need this kind of fence, but we're going to allow this one. So
Yeah,
that's,
and I agree with you. And I think that, our staff, I'm gonna, hypothesize that they've analyzed this and they've studied this and they've made that determination based on the code, where it's appropriate and where it's not. If something is gonna cause a lot of noise, the staff is gonna recognize that and say, we need a better fence. We need a more not sound mitigating, but soundproof fence that's gonna stop the sound because it's gonna be a nuisance to the neighbors. But based on this proposal, the staff said, okay, what they're proposing is reasonable based on the business and the code. So.
We have Councilmember Dewey.
Just to make sure I heard correctly, did you say that the outside activities would be mostly between 11 and 2? So not so much into the late afternoon or early morning for sure?
No, because we don't have lights out there to play outside, and it doesn't end up. They have time periods where they're outside and it's briefly in the morning and then after lunch typically.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, well, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any other more questions or comments on the motion?
Could we read the motion again, please?
Sure. So as a new proposed condition 19, the required 8-foot tall sound mitigating and site-proof fence shall be constructed of either a cementitious material or a material comparable to a Simtech composite fence as determined by the Planning and Development Services Department.
Thank you.
Questions or comments on that motion? All in favor, please say aye.
I
All opposed, say no.
No.
Motion is defeated. I would say this, though, if you just look in the next couple weeks and decide you want to do a different type of fence because it might work better, let us know. You know, just let Jonathan know. So but if not, you know, this one will still be on for second reading, the one you have. All right. Do we have other questions or comments from council? Councilmember Gibbons.
I would like to, I've struggled with this because I'm really concerned about the left in, left out. So I wanted to know if will a no U-turn sign be placed at Fillmore?
So a no U-turn prohibition would have to be passed by ordinance. So there is an ordinance, a section of the municipal code that prohibits U-turns at certain locations. So U-turns are permissible in the city unless it's prohibited at a certain location, of which we have 4 in the city. 3 around this intersection, 1 at Craig and Woodbine. So in order to place a sign, we would have to pass an ordinance. I think it's stated with recommendation from the city engineer. So maybe I shouldn't be up here. And in discussions earlier with the city engineer, it would likely require some coordination with St. Louis County, at least to attach the sign onto their equipment. Chris, do you want to add?
Is it,
I think what Jonathan is saying is that the no U-turn is a different issue. This may instigate an analysis of that, but that's a separate ordinance that would have to be analyzed by staff, separate issue that would have to be analyzed by staff, and a separate ordinance that would come before this body.
can we initiate or no? How does that?
City council typically does not initiate that. Obviously, all of us pay attention to what the city council has to say. So I'll leave that up to staff as to whether or not there is some proposal to take a look at it.
I'll speak for staff on this.
Perfect.
I feel in this case, there's not a warrant for anything until after we observe some things. I mean, if there is an observed problem, then perhaps we could visit that after the place opens. Or if council directs us to visit it prior, we can do that.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you can, would we do that here? You know, we wouldn't do it
Typically not.
here. Maybe later, council comments or something, we can, if you want to request make a motion and have council do it, and then, you know.
I think one of the things I'd like to know is where are school-age children being picked up by buses, or are they walking, or what's going on in that intersection with school-age children? And I guess that's something we'd need to check with the school district and
The school district picks their kids up in the neighborhood.
Yeah, not on Big Bend.
nobody around there at all. And our kids walking to Knifer.
Some kids walk. But all kids are afforded transportation because it's a highway. They have to take.
So the ordinance, sorry, I'm sorry. So just for clarification, the placement of signs prohibiting or restricting turns is the ordinance that I was referencing earlier. And it says the traffic engineer, which is I assume is the city engineer at this point. Traffic engineer is hereby authorized to determine those intersections at which drivers of vehicles shall not make a right, left, or U-turn and shall place proper signage at such intersections. So that's the authority. That's who has the authority under ordinance to make that determination. And as Mr. Hawes mentioned, those are initiated when we observe that there is a problem. And I will state, based on the traffic study, we can't say that there will be a problem here. And I'm not going to speak for Chris, obviously, but I think that's where it sits at staff right now. So.
Councilmember Ward.
Well, as I said earlier, I don't have a problem with the project or the proposed use. I do have some concerns about the quality of life in that neighborhood if we start pushing more traffic than they already have in there. And I think people will find alternate routes into there and further aggravate that neighborhood as it is, which is what we would characterize as a classic affordable neighborhood. The applicant stated that the first thing they did after they met with staff was go to DOT, and they gave DOT information that, from my reading, apparently drove the whole conversation about location of the lack of consideration for using the existing traffic signal there coming out of Kirkwood Commons for their entrance, in that they became a geographic oddity demographically, that 85% of the people who want to have a Montessori preschool experience come from the east. And maybe you've got some data to support that. I'd be happy to see it. But to tell me that only 15% of the people are going to come from the west, will be eastbound and would want to get into that complex, it's kind of ludicrous to me. So I take that with a grain of salt. But beyond that, I would like for this body to consider, and this is an aside, that we think about some rulemaking or some policy that gets us into the game with third parties before decisions have already been made. This one got locked down with the county before the council had an opportunity to do anything with it. And then you come in and give us an offer. It's kind of a fake opportunity for us as a council. And I think we've had that before, and I think we should do something to have some reasonable means of deciding when it's appropriate for some of that decision-making to fall to the council for advisement to staff.
Any other council comments or questions?
Yeah,
Councilmember
I would
Sears?
just observe, this was going to be a comment before Wallace just brought up the issue, but perhaps the business knows their model and what they're doing when they say that significant amount of their customers will be driving in from the east. One of the reasons might be if it's the hellscape coming in that is being described here tonight as far as traffic from the west, then they won't want to take their kids there, similar to what the mayor commented on earlier. If it's that much of a struggle that we're making weird turns and going off on neighborhood streets and in order to make this curlicue into the property, then that wouldn't be a convenient place. You'd go to another place with your child, and maybe most of the business comes from the east because it's easy in and out.
I mean, and look at the numbers. I just don't see a big impact on the neighborhood. People would have to drive down Fillmore, come all the way around. It's not like they have to come back to Big Ben. And I just see maybe somebody doing that one time and say, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna go down to 44 or wherever they do it. I just don't see, I don't think the numbers from this traffic study again, traffic studies, we've got to look at them, and if we like something, we can't say, oh, that's a great traffic study. If we don't like it, it's a bad traffic study. These are engineers, and I take them for the data that they are. And I just don't see a huge influx of cars going through, the neighborhood there to mill around and get there. And again, at one time, somebody said, I'm not doing this. So, that's just my thought on that. So, we have any other questions or comments on the bill? Councilmember Zimmer.
I'll just throw this out there. I think it's a risk of the business. I trust the consumer to figure it out, and people will figure out whether they're going to make the effort to go there or not. Whether it's 85%, 95%, whether they go back into Taylor here, whether they turn around, people are going to figure it out. And it's a risk that the business takes. So,
You missed the point, Mark. The risk is to the neighborhood. It's to the
well,
residents there. That's the concern.
well,
I think
the
folks
residents-
who have high demand for a quality preschool, they'll figure out a way to get there. But I think
They
it's going to
will.
be potentially to the detriment of the neighborhood.
well, if 85% are coming to the east, they're going to turn in and out right there in Big Bend.
Well, had
Shouldn't
it
affect
been
the
problematic for them to come from the east, he might have suggested they drop in by balloon. I just don't see that as a reasonable argument.
All right. Anything else on this? All right, seeing none, we're gonna go ahead and vote. All in favor of Bill 10954 for first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. All right, bill passes first reading. Bill 10955.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance appropriating $40,001 from the Equitable Sharing Fund balance to the Police Department Other Professional Services account, accepting the single source proposal of Axon Enterprises for body worn camera and taser hardware and software for the Police Department for an initial term of 12 months in the amount of $110,001, with the option to renew annually thereafter for 4 additional 12-month terms, funding for additional terms contingent upon budgetary approval, and authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract.
Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
A motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
No.
Councilmember
I could
Sears?
ask our city attorney, is it possible in the future that maybe I could donate $1 or something and so we could have round numbers? Sometimes they're like 37 cents or something.
It's possible you could make a donation, bring it down.
All right,
We'll do that before second reading.
next time,
Amend the
next
bill.
time. Okay.
We could split it.
Might put in a dime.
Yeah, sure.
All right, anything else on that? All right, seeing none, all in favor of first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Bill passes first reading. Bill 10956.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance adopting a revised City of Kirkwood classification and pay plan effective January 1, 2023.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any questions or comments? Councilmember Ward.
Yeah, Mr. Hawes, if you could, or have a representative explain for the council and for the community, the general impact in our budget for this. As you know, the super majority of our budget is salaries and benefits.
Right.
It certainly impacts that. So if you could. touch
Correct,
on
yes.
that.
About 76% of our budget is personnel costs, which is the salary and benefits. And this will have a significant impact, obviously, because it was originally scheduled to be a 1.5% adjustment. But with the market and just the facts of life right now with inflation and looking at the current recruiting and retention trends, we feel that this is the appropriate adjustment at the appropriate time. It will have an impact in the fiscal year currently of $191,000 on the general fund budget.
And we're not expecting anywhere near 5% increase in revenue, are we?
We're seeing some revenue increases continue because with inflation, sales taxes are coming up. Now, if demand drops significantly, and we are projecting in the next fiscal year, a possibility of a recession, that's certainly within the topic of discussion. And part of that involves looking very carefully at departmental budgets to where we can adjust before we present to city council. Those so that we can get the number as balanced as possible.
Well, I thank you for that, because I think it's important for the community to understand, for the taxpayers to know that it's going to be a highly competitive environment out there, and it's only going to increase.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Councilmember Litzo had her hand up first, sorry.
So I just wanted to clarify that we're actually talking about a 3.5% net increase over what the budget that was already passed
That is
by you
correct.
all last March.
That is correct.
Also, Russ, you sent a memo around about this on November 18th, and you talk about a cumulative impact. Is that just for salaries, or does it take into account the increases because of the 5% increase versus?
It's not
the
just
1 point?
salaries.
So all of
It's the
pension,
cumulative
all
impact
the-
across all the compensation based upon salary level.
Okay, I wanted to clarify that, and right, costs of everything are going up, and I think it's important that we try and keep our employees' salaries, on pace with other municipalities, but prices are going up. We're hoping that maybe this will slow down, but I think we all value our employees who work hard for the city, for our citizens and businesses, and this is the least we can do. So I approve. Thank you for doing this.
Councilmember Gibbons, I know you had a question. Oh, we'll come back. Councilmember Zimmer.
Yeah,
back is.
Russ, thanks for adjusting this. This is just knowing, some of the cost of living increases in the business world are much higher than 5%. The inflation rate has been higher than 5%. Hopefully this will be incentive enough for our folks to be here.
You sure?
You'll
We were talking about this. We were talking about that.
Right.
Only first reading.
Okay, all right. All right, with that, all in favor of first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Say no. All right, bill passes first reading. Resolution 148, 2022.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution amending and readopting the city of Kirkwood city fee schedules.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
All right, any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, a roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Councilmember Litzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 149, 2022.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Kirkwood and the city of Glendale for the right-of-way negotiation services for the East Essex Avenue reconstruction project in the amount of $33,174.
Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
There a second?
Second.
All right, we got a motion, a second. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Councilmember Litzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 150, 2022.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution accepting the bid of Ranieri Building Materials in the amount not to exceed an annually budgeted funds for materials for the purchase of for the purchase of ready-mix concrete for the street department for an initial term of 12 months with the option to renew for up to 4 additional 12-month terms with funding contingent upon budgetary approval and authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
I've got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Zimmer?
I would just say, I noticed that the price of ready-mix concrete has gone up, approximately 16%, over the previous contract. So, 5% certainly a bargain, but, hopefully these increases will not, they're certainly not sustainable over the long term. So, hopefully this is just, a one-time incident and the prices are not going to keep increasing.
All right, anything else from council? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Givens.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 151, 2022.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution accepting the proposal of Symetra for medical stop loss coverage in the amount of $730,681 for the period of April 1, 2023 through March 31, 2024.
Your motion for approval?
Motion.
There a second?
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Givens.
Yes.
Resolution passes. City council reports. Does anyone have anything to report? By right, anything on my left? All right. Chief Administrative Officer report.
I have no report at this time, Mayor.
City Attorney report.
I have no report.
All right. City Clerk, I know has a report.
Yes, Your Honor, I have one thing to report on, a scheduled upcoming public hearing. We have a public hearing scheduled on December 15th, 2022 for a request for a major site plan partial amendment at the Greenbrier Hill Country Club at 12665 Big Bend Boulevard for 4 pickleball courts and a swimming pool deck expansion. And that's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Next meeting of City Council is 2 weeks from tonight, 7 PM here at City Hall. This meeting is adjourned.